Okay, and welcome to the Franchise Freedom Podcast. I'm your host, Giuseppe Grammatico, your franchise guide. And today we have a very special guest. It's our first show with two guests on at the same time. So we are trying to figure out where everyone, it looks like the Brady Bunch here. We have some screens all over. So I'm glad it all works. And Brack, we're almost covering your face, but we're good there. And I'll figure it out on the next one. So quick little bio before kind of just to introduce everyone. So we have Williams Brack, aka Brack, currently VP Community Development Manager at Regions, relevant sales experience in middle market commercial lending, wealth management, B2B telecom, and consumer telecom. We're going to talk a lot about funding and what that looks like, and maybe some common ways to fund your business. And next, at the bottom of the screen, we have Samuel Nelson, owner of the national massage company Massage on the Go, where he provides corporate chair massages. Hint, there's going to be a little promo at the end, so definitely listen in to the end of the show. His business has pivoted. I got to get one of those. His business has pivoted to provide PPE, masks, gloves, gowns during the pandemic. And Sam has also began selling branded massage guns. Branched into post-op lymphatic drainage massages, which is
That's
pretty
a mouthful.
cool. So, want to learn more about that? So, welcome, guys, to the show.
Welcome.
Hey, how you
Giuseppe.
doing?
Thanks for having us.
on.
Thank you. I know this is great. I'm glad this is all working. So, I'm excited. So, we kind of talked a little bit before the show, but if maybe Brack, if you want to kick it off, maybe a little bit about yourself. A little bit about you, your story on transition from, where you are to where you are today, and just anything that you find useful for the viewers.
Yeah, sure. Giuseppe, first thing I want to say is thanks for having Sam and I on the show. And most importantly, in this digital age, thanks for sliding into our DMs on the Sell or Fail page.
Yes.
Right on.
And us responding, because we've sent out messages on Instagram to people who never responded. And so we wanted to make sure that we responded and join your podcast. And hopefully we get a great one-on-one going. And so my story begins way back in Greenwood, Mississippi, which is in the Delta, one of the poorest regions of the country. And so I grew up in multiple, and I mean multiple generations of poverty. And so for me growing up, that was my enemy. That was something to overcome. That was something that was always at the forefront for me. And I saw a lot of my peers who combated that poverty by going into social work, helping other people. Maybe they became teacher because education was the route. But for me, I kind of looked at this thing early on and said, if I know nothing about money and that's creating poverty, how do I learn as much as possible about money? And so I went to Morehouse College and I majored in finance. And so I learned all the high finance things that they do on Wall Street. And I was like, that's big and that's helping the super wealthy. But how do we help everybody? So instead of going to Wall Street as a professional, I decided to go into wealth management planning. And I did it at Northwestern Mutual. So I learned about insurance. I learned about disability, whole life insurance, term life, invested life insurance. And then I had my Series 7 and 66 and learned about stocks, bonds, and mutual funds. That business was great. But there was kind of more to learn because business owners are the highest and best wealth creators in this country, whether they're startups with a fresh and new idea or they're buying and multiplying franchise opportunities. And so I said, hey, what can I do to learn as much as possible about the business side of finance? And so I transitioned from wealth management planning to commercial banking. And my customers on the commercial banking side were entrepreneurs and business owners who had a minimum revenue of 25 million up to $500 million. And I did a specialized type lending called asset-based lending, which uses receivables and inventory. And then here lately with Regions, I transitioned to cash flow lending. And so I got to work with very intelligent CEOs and CFOs about how they built their business. My very first question to all of them was why and how. And then I take that knowledge on what I do now, which is community development, and transfer that downstream to business owners who are making $1 million, 2 million. Like, hey, this is how you can get to 25 million. This is what I've seen from people who've started and built successful businesses. Yeah, that's where I stop.
Wow, very interesting.
Great story, man. I want to read your book.
Let's hear from Sam how he stole what you were telling me about how you stole some stuff. So let's
hold up. And so the last thing, Sam and I, the way we're connected, we are the co-host on the Sell or Fail podcast, where we talk about selling from both a corporate, which is me, and an entrepreneurial perspective, which is Sam. And that information is really useful for recent college graduates that first 3 years out of business. We want to accelerate your experience in sales so you can be successful now and not have to wait to be a 20-year veteran.
Right.
Sam?
Oh, so I'm Samuel Nelson. I'm going to go back. I grew up in Orange Mound, Bethel Grove area. It's pretty famous. It's the second largest African-American community outside of Harlem that own their own houses and property. My mother and father are college educated, but later on in life. And I always was that guy that wanted to either cut yards to make some money. And then back in the day, pirating DVDs, that was my thing. And that's how I actually paid for college. So I had sold CDs, DVDs, and Gucci I was getting from China. So I was buying it for $40 a yard, and I was selling it for $100 a yard. So I was buying the materials. And I had a lady that actually will make the material for you. So you'll buy the material from me, she'll make the material for you. And we custom made suits. We made a couch. We made some everything for people. And so that's how I paid for college. I got into college. I was a biochemical engineer major with a minor in business management. And I really didn't want to be in a lab, and I needed a trade because, as you know, you're broke college students, and everybody got CDs now, or you can download music, so they kind of faded away. And I saw a guy on TV doing massages, and I believe if one person is doing it, and if I really want to do it, I can do it. And I didn't know anything about massages. I walked out on faith. I'm really into my faith. And I just walked out the next day, literally, didn't research massage school, just went to a massage school, asked them, how do I get started? Never had a massage in my life. Didn't know anything about massages. I just knew I could do this. And I went to massage school for a year after going to school. So I turned 21 in massage school. I went back to college for a year and doing massages on the side. And I got a call from New York. A company in New York wanted me to do massages in Memphis. And I had that chip on my shoulder, like, you eating in my backyard. So how are they calling me from New York to do massages in Memphis? So I took the contract, and as entrepreneurs to tell you, it was a paid internship. I learned everything I could about this company, and I look at the legalities on this contract. So I took it to a lawyer friend of mine, and we took their contract, broke it down, put it back together, and I actually started off as Pamper Party Express. And what we had was nail techs, massage therapists, and estheticians, and we'll come to your house. But I couldn't control it as much as I, thought I could. So I skimmed it down and went just for massage. And then I tell massage therapists, I realized you can only massage one person at a time. So I say a saying all the time, if you look like money, they'll give it to you. So Cigna called me one day, and they said, hey, we heard that you have massage on the go. Now, something your listeners will know, and a few people know, I always sold my company as a nationwide massage company way before I even had a nationwide contract. I just always said it. So when Cigna called me and said, we have a contract in Texas, can you handle it? I said yes. Cigna didn't know until 8 years later they was my first nationwide contract.
Oh, wow.
Right. So
do their homework.
So I called Texas. I hired a young lady just like this company did. She sent me over her letter. She sent me over all the information, and from there I grew the company to 550 therapists nationwide. We focus on Gerber Foods, Cigna, Blue Cross Blue Shield, Walmart, and only thing we do, I'm like a massage broker. When companies call me, We find their massage therapists that they need. We make sure they're trained. We develop a program. So we have weekly contract with St. Jude, yearly contract, quarterly contracts, and we just send massage therapists to your office. We develop a wellness program. From there, I talk about carpal tunnel syndrome, sciatica, migraine headaches, plantar fasciitis, and how to manage stress in the workplace. So I took that niche and just blew it up from there.
That's very interesting. And I was saying it. I started saying at the beginning of the show when I invested in my first franchise, that was a massage type of business, franchise business was presented to me, and I said, with the market kind of going to where it did and going into 2008, I go, who the heck is going to get massages? That's so expensive. Who's going to pay for that? And boy, was I wrong. I admit my mistakes, and I can't call it a regret because I was in another business that did equally as well. But I never realized how much people would pay for a massage, and that's only because I only had one massage prior to that. Since then, maybe I've had maybe 4 or 5, but to realize how much the true health benefits, not that it's just a luxury. There are actually, as you mentioned, Sam, tons of benefits to that, and that's more of the kind of the education process. So. When we started talking about massages before, I had an immediate flashback, and I'm like, man, I remember those days, and I kind of wish I had picked up a few of those along the way. So
imagine being a kid from Orange Mound who had never had a massage before.
Yeah.
You tell all your family, I'm opening a massage company. They looked at me like, what? What? And it grew from there. And also, a lot of people don't know this. Massage therapy is the number 2 part-time job in the United States.
Is it? I didn't know
Nursing
that.
is number 1, and then massage therapy. Because we can set, after so many years, you can set your own price and you can set your own hours.
Wow.
And what was the first one?
Nursing. Nursing is the number 1 part-time job, and then massage therapy is right up under that.
Very interesting. Yeah, it's definitely grown. You see a lot more of these companies, and I think the internet helped, as I mentioned, with about health benefits. So, switching gears a little bit. So, Brack, we talk about funding, right? We had a little conversation before, and people that are talking to me are like, all right, let's look into business ownership, franchise ownership. What does it look like? And they want to dive right in, and I talk about funding. And funding is something that needs to be done at the beginning of the process, kind of like buying a home, right? You need to know, or going to the car dealership. You're not going to look at a $100,000 Tesla when you got a few grand in the bank. So regardless of the loans you can maybe qualify for. So I educate and talk about the importance of funding, doing that kind of in the very beginning. So with whatever business, franchise, startup, whatever it may be, you need access to capital. Maybe it's lines of credit. Talk to us a little bit about funding, the importance, when you should be doing it, and maybe some options, some popular options maybe people should do some research on.
Yeah, sure. Giuseppe, I'll tell you, a lot of people kind of glorify the entrepreneurship route. And what I tell them, especially if I compare myself to Sam, is as a corporate employee, I can clock in at 8, leave at 5. And if I want to be a super corporate employee, I leave at 6. If I want to be a dynamic corporate employee, I might even open my laptop on the weekends and work. Well, as an entrepreneur, you actually work more than most corporate employees.
Amen.
3 a.m., 8 p.m. If you take a vacation, you're likely working on vacation. Late at night, customers expect a response. And so that's the first, glorification of entrepreneurship. And the second glorification of entrepreneurship is the funding piece, which is everybody has heard use other people's money. However, when it comes to banks, what banks do is we multiply. In general, right? And there are a ton of exceptions out here, but in general, banks multiply. We take 1 and we can make that into 3 or 4. Mm-hmm. We'll take 4, we may make that 5, and any kind of aggressive bank, they may even multiply your 1 into 6, 7, or 8, but we can't multiply 0. And so as budding or interesting entrepreneurs, you have to bring something to the table. And typically, in the generalized sense, it's 20%. 20%, whether it's real estate, whether it's a business startup, entrepreneurship, you need that 20% piece. Now, clearly, there are some exceptions. So the SBA is 10%, and some aggressive high interest lenders might even loan you 100%. But from the bank's perspective, that 20% serves as skin in the game.
Skin in the game, yep.
It serves as skin in the game. So we like to see that 10%. I mean, we like to see that 20% investment from you. And I'll tell you, from a banker's perspective, there are two customers that I really like to identify. One is the interested entrepreneur who solely wants to use everybody else's money. Sure, they have some cash in the bank. They're willing to put up that, but they don't want to touch their 401k.
Right.
They don't want to touch the equity in their home. They don't even want to call friends and family for money. Well, the entrepreneurs that I like to work with, that I like to fund, that I see as bankers, are the ones who put everything on the line. You know, I had a customer, he called friends and family to raise money. He had a blood testing business. He called friends and family to raise money. He called his wife, friends and family to raise money. He used all of his savings. He liquidated his 401k to invest in his business. He used whole life insurance, and he used every bucket of available money he had, he invested into his business, into himself, because he believed in it that much. COVID hit. His business was on the brink of failure. But he worked it because he had everything in it. And some guys found out, you know, he networked, he worked, and he found some investors to invest $500,000 into his business. So he went from on the brink of failure before COVID. He started doing COVID testing. That $500,000 of investment allowed him to invest in the machinery necessary. So his business at the beginning of 2020 went from the brink of failure to almost a $6 million business as of last month. The investors asked, did you put everything you could into it? His answer was yes. And so they were ready to jump in bed with him to help him grow his business because he invested every single thing he had. I talk to a lot of entrepreneurs who are willing to invest some of what they have. They're willing to use their cash, but not their 401k. They're willing to use their cash, but not the equity in their home. Giuseppe, they'll even take your money, but they won't use all of theirs. And so from a funding perspective, the first thing I tell a lot of interested want bank loans, that banking is the hardest money you can get. It is also the lowest interest money you can get. If you want to pay more for your money, sure, SBA's a route. Private investors are a route. And with low interest money, there comes certain standards. We want to have a track record of success. Right. You need good credit because credit speaks to your character. We want to know that you've worked in that business and you've gone through some ups and downs and turbulent times. And so from a funding piece, 20% is general. A couple of years of success in that business is critical. And the fact that you have some kind of financial savvy to be a good steward of the funds once you receive them. I hope that helped, Giuseppe.
Oh, that was very helpful. And you know, it basically actions speak louder than words. You know, saying to an investor or to a bank, I'm committed, or going all in are two completely different things. So absolutely agree. You hear of these investors, these business owners that they're multi-millionaire, in some cases billionaires, and they've had 8 failures and 1 successful business.
Mm-hmm. Right. And I got something to say too. Entrepreneurs that's listening, it is 100% true. I didn't know anything about banking starting off. Like I said, I grew up in Orange Mound. Nobody in my family was an entrepreneur. Nobody knew anything about massages. I literally sold everything out my room. I was still staying with my mom. I sold my weight set. I sold everything but my computer. I developed a relationship with a banker. He was a client, and he asked me, so what you doing? He taught me a little bit about banking, but I never had to present a business plan. I had a relationship with the bank. They saw my cash flow. They saw what I was doing. I said, hey, I'm trying to expand and do X, Y, Z. They said, just come in and we'll give you the money for it. And they trust me. In 90 days, 60 days, 100 days, I had their money back to them, and we got a great relationship. So business owners just listening, developing a relationship with your clients, with your banker, with your CPA, that's how you grow your business, because people do business with people that they like at the end of the day.
So, and I'll piggyback that. Establish the relationship before you need money.
Right. Don't come in there begging. Don't come in begging. You know.
On your hands and knees. I need a loan.
Because Regions might tap me on the hand for this, but banks do not lend money to people who need it.
True.
Banks lend money to people who are already successful with a proven track record that they can pay it back.
Right.
If you have to have the money, and I hate to say it, if you have to have the money to save your business, you more than likely need to go to an investor instead of a bank.
That's right.
Now that's a really good advice and this is real stuff. This is not the stuff where, I went to grad school, finance and investments, and they don't teach you a lot of this stuff. So this is, MBA plus. They say this is MBA and a podcast plus. Maybe we'll call it a PhD. We'll take it to the next level. But I agree 110%. There's the book by Dan Sullivan, Who Not How. Again, who not how. It's who you know. You don't have to figure out and know and go online and figure out all your funding options.
Yep.
That's the who. The who is your banker. So the who is your banker. That banker obviously is going to have that skill set, the knowledge, the products to be able to assist you. And in some cases, they may not be able to. Maybe your credit score is just not where it needs to be, and maybe they have another resource. But I talk about this on my first couple shows, as well as the book, Build Your Team. Have that CPA, as Sam mentioned, Brack, the funding partner, the financial advisor, the attorney, the franchise consultant, if you're looking at franchising, but build that team. But the trick is, a team is useless if you have a bunch of people that don't talk to one another. And I had that team in the beginning of my career. They refused to pick up the phone and speak with each other. If you have that team, so what I did was I started with my financial advisor. She recommended an attorney, a friend of hers. She recommended a CPA. They all live in the same town. You don't necessarily need that, but they all speak at least on a monthly basis, so that if I have a complicated situation, whether it's a candidate or myself, at least they can communicate and say, this an S corp makes sense on the accounting side, but there's more protection on an LLC. Making this up. What is the best way?
Right. What I was going to say, and sorry for cutting you off, but a relationship, like I tell people all the time, in order for a relationship to move, you have to relate within the ship. So if you want to develop a stronger relationship, you have to relate, and everybody got to know which way this ship is moving. Because you're going to have turbulent time. Me and Brack laugh all the time. They call it currency because it flows. It goes up and down. So what you're going to do when the ship is on a low current and you going through straights and narrows and you're not talking to each other on how to move money around or what's the next pivot, and then the relationship is broken up. They say people, divorce is a lack of sex and lack of money. It's a lack of communication. When to have sex and when to spend the money. We got to talk about it. That's what it is, right?
I like that. This is true, right? No,
this is true.
Makes sense.
Yeah, but that's all I want to piggyback on that.
No, that's great. No, I like that. No, this is the stuff. Yeah, unfortunately, a lot of people have to learn the hard way. So
right.
And I offer this, and anyone that listens to these shows, if they like what I have to say, they have a question, they have a question for Sam, Brack. I always say this. And if you want to speak with any guests that I've had on any of my, what are we almost approaching episode 70, just send me an email. I'll be more than glad to make the introduction. Maybe they can assist you directly. Maybe they can point you in the right direction. Maybe you could buy some, this massage gun that we're going to hear about later on. Whatever the case, yeah, exactly. So whatever the case may be, is anyone listening in, if you have a question, if you want some information, take advantage of this. I wish I had some of the contacts that I've made over the years in the very beginning, because I would have made a lot less mistakes. Probably would have scaled a lot quicker. But again, you learn from experience, but it's nice to be able to grow it exponentially, right?
Right.
And having these key relationships and people in place that you could just pick up the phone and speak with. Sam, talk to us a little. So talk to us. You said you pivoted. So, how you got into PPP. Sorry for the lighting. Of course, this time of day, I got to get some shades for the windows.
You great. So and it goes back. My light is kind of blurred too, but this massage gun and the story will go back around to this. So the coronavirus hits. Gerber Food calls me. Embassy Jet. There's a jet company we was doing in Arizona. Christian Brothers University, St. Jude Baptist Hospital. In 7 minutes, I lost $157,000, and I would never forget that for the rest of my life. I'm sitting here in my office because I write down all my bills on my dry board, my personal bills, my business bills, my savings, everything. And I'm looking at it and I'm like, well, how am I going to pay my bills in the next 30 days? Because the coronavirus was just on CNN, not in my backyard at the time. And when it got onto my backyard, my heart started. I had two anxiety attacks, man. It was a hard time. And then I went back into my clientele. So one of my clients, he does international shipping from Tokyo, Japan. And I went to him because I use Google Trends. Google Trends says that the top 2 things that was selling in massage world was massage guns and house calls. Well, people weren't really getting house calls because of the coronavirus. So I went to him and said, hey, how can I get these massage guns directly from a manufacturer in China? So when I went to him, he said, well, I have 20 million masks. I have 100,000 body bags and coronavirus tests. Do you want to sell these? So I went back to the house. I thought about it. I have about 20,000 clients that are all corporate. Corporations still need PPP. Right. So don't force a sale. If somebody needs something, you sell a drowning man a life raft, right? You don't want to tell him a cup of water. You say, you need this life raft right now. So instead of focusing on the massage guns, I called him back. And I just watch CNN. Every time CNN say they ran out of masks, body bags, whatever, I called him. I bought them for buy low, sell high. I bought 100,000 of them. I sold it to Shelby County. I sold it to Matter, our transportation company here. I've sold it to some private nonprofits. I sold it all the way to Kansas City, to New York. And I had a house full of masks, hand sanitizers, body bags, gloves. I even had the rapid test. I sold 100,000 of the rapid tests. Wow. So I just drew into my clientele.
And that's a shameless plug for the podcast. Either you sell or you fail.
Or you fail. That's why I'm on it, baby. If you selling, you selling. If you ain't, you failing. It's either sink or swim. You have to go. An entrepreneur metaphorically sharpen his sword every morning, and he go hunting. He want to go hunting for a bass, but if the bass ain't biting and the brim bite, you got to catch you some brim and keep moving. So that's how I got into it. I went to a client, and I was trying to get the massage guns. I had that, and it was in Memphis. I took all my money I had. Like Brack just said, I went down to the bones, to the meat, and I invested into it. And then from there, this green screen behind me, I bought that. I bought these lights, and I started making infomercials about PPP, and it worked. It didn't, Brack. It worked. It worked. I started running ads on Facebook. I did mass emails every day. Massage on the Go will provide you with hand sanitizers. Our pitch was, you don't have to wait 3 or 4 days. We're faster than Amazon. And people started buying them from us. They buy it and we'll pull up to the next day. I had started using pickup trucks from my friends because I had so many masks and I was just dropping them off left and right.
Yeah, it's always interesting to hear how people pivoted. And some people pivoted, instead of in person, they went virtual. But then you hear of stories like this where completely different. I mean, just you're going from the massage guns into a PPE. So I find that really interesting, and I think that just that's a great example of you do what it takes to stay alive and in business. And On the franchise side, it was kind of the big shakeup, or I guess it was a big shakeup in that you got to see who stood out. And that was when you're looking at companies, what did that franchise do during COVID? Now, some businesses just exploded, like home service businesses and small business coaching. But on the brick and mortar retail side, some of them struggled, obviously, right? You couldn't go anywhere. So how did the gyms pivot from in-person to virtual? And how are they doing now? What did they do for their companies? And I think that's you have to be proactive, and you always have to be ready. So on the funding side, it's cash reserves, right? You don't want to spend and have a bank account with nothing in it. So you're always planning for the future. You're always looking to cut costs. But in the event something like this happens again, are we prepared? How quickly are we able to make change? So we saw quite a bit of that. Hopefully we don't have to experience anything like this again, but it was crazy to say the least, but we definitely learned some things.
And
try to look at the positive, right?
And Giuseppe, here's what I tell you from the bank perspective is we saw some surprise winners during COVID, and mostly those were the quick serve is technical, but the fast food restaurants. They shut down the inside and started doing drive-through, and their revenue stayed steady and increased for some. And then that created an expanded strategy of some restaurants shutting down their inside out. Starbucks is going mostly to a drive-through operation here going forward, is what I hear. But from Sam's story, because we host a sales podcast, what people need to understand is sales is probably the number one skill you need to be successful in business.
In the globe.
In the world.
On the globe, yeah.
If you can sell in America, you can sell in Europe, you can sell in Africa, you can sell in Asia. If you can sell Gucci material low and then high from China, you can sell massages. You can sell massages, you can sell massage guns, you can sell massage guns, you can sell personal protective equipment. When you master the art and the skill of selling, it's insert product here.
Exactly.
And because Sam has mastered the art, the skill, and the ability to sell, he will always be successful. Now, he'll have those bouts of anxiety where the world is crashing down, but then he'll remember who he is, and he'll remember that he can sell.
Yes.
And selling will get him out of any issue that he's in. That more sales.
Yep. What I say, tough time makes strong people, soft time make weak people. So this is how it is, because I grew up the way I grew up in Orange Mound. I always seen you got to keep going. Like I told people when I first started Massage on the Go, I knew I can stay up 72 hours straight. So if I got to make it happen, you got to make it happen. You have no other choice.
I agree, right? You don't have that. You have the means, right? It's like I could just fall back on something else, right? And you have to make it happen. I remember making my decision in my first business. I did all the due diligence, and it's like, all right, sign the document. Let's get started. You got to take that leap of faith. And someone said, well, what about if you fail? You have a baby on the way later that year. And I said, well, I believe in myself. The best investment I made was in me. It wasn't in the stock market, and I come from the investment world. The best investment was I'm gonna double down on myself, and there's no plan B. I burned the bridges behind me. I said there's no plan B or C. There's a plan A and only one plan, and we made it work. Was it smooth sailing the first year? No. Just like any business, a franchise, I believe, gives you an unfair advantage. Is a franchise better than a startup like Massage on the Go? And the answer is simple. It depends. It depends simply on what you're looking for. So this isn't a show to promote franchises. This is a show to promote, figuring out what it takes to be an entrepreneur, number one. Number two, what does that look like? Is it, Sam, Massage on the Go, where it's a startup and you're creating it from scratch? And then, or is it a franchise where basically you have a proven system? So I literally got this question maybe 2 hours ago, and I said, we're going to be recording a show. I always send the links out to individual shows instead of saying just check out the podcast, but definitely want to send this out when it goes live in a few weeks, because it really depends on what the heck you're looking for. But as you're figuring that out, don't just stop there. Go into funding. Talk to people. Talk to people in similar businesses. Do your homework. See what else is out there. Avoid the fads. There's so many things that I talk to with people. They get so excited about the widget, the product, the service, the shiny thing, and it's like, I'm so excited about McDonald's, and I go, did you know you could buy a franchise for maybe a fraction of the price and eat all the Big Macs you want? And they look at me. You don't have to own that business just because you like the product. You can own another business and buy and use that product all day, or that service all day long. To be respectful of your guys' time, I know we try to keep the show between 30, 40 minutes. So kind of getting towards the end of the show. So piece of advice you wish you had to an aspiring entrepreneur, and the best way someone can go about to reach you and maybe get in contact or learn more about you.
You can go first, Brett.
Sure. And I'll tailor my message to the early aspiring entrepreneurs who are either seniors in college or their first year in a job or into a business,
right,
or the late stage executive who's ready to leave corporate. What's very important is the bucket strategy that I used to teach when I was a financial planner. Cash isn't better than stocks, bonds, mutual funds isn't better than something else. And so you need to start early building the buckets. The first bucket is cash. If anything happens in the immediate sense, you need cash, and typically that will solve a lot of issues. From having cash, some people say 6 months. I say for the rest of your life, save a minimum of 10% of all the revenue you bring in and have that in reserve. The second piece is to play some defense. That might look like disability insurance. That might look like term insurance. And that may look like a hybrid defense of cash value insurance. And that could look like investable. It could be whole life or investor universal life or something like that. But that plays defense and offense. From there, if you're corporate, even if you're an entrepreneur, if you're corporate, start the 401k. If you're an entrepreneur, start the IRA. That gives you some long-term investing at tax advantage, in a tax advantage way. You do not have to be smart to be an investor. The stock market, the S&P 500 has grown on average of 8% over the past 100 plus years. You don't have to be a rocket scientist to invest. S&P 500, 8%. The second piece is a medium-term strategy. That's stocks, bonds, mutual funds outside of a tax-advantaged retirement plan that you can't touch until age 60. So if you've invested in stocks, bonds, mutual funds in the short term, you have a 401k IRA in the long term, you have disability, life insurance, and whole life as a hybrid strategy, and on the defensive and the medium term as well, you have cash in the short term. From there, those things will give you options to invest in something like a home. So the home piece is critical because that allows you to build equity that you can also use. So now you have equity in the home. You have whole life. You have cash. You have stocks, bonds, mutual funds, and you also have your 401k IRA. From there, once you have all those things, and now you're thinking about starting a business or investing into the franchise, if you've done those things early on, you have the buckets necessary to lateralize your dream, to invest your dream. Now you can go against your whole life insurance policy that you started at 22 because your friend convinced you and you couldn't figure out why the hell you needed life insurance at 22. Now you can borrow instead of liquidate from your 401k to invest in your dream. You can use the equity in your home because you made good decisions early. And now your journey into entrepreneurship as a startup or a franchisee is a lot easier because you're not worried about money on a day-to-day basis. So start investing in those buckets early, all of them or as many as possible. And later it paves the road to success in business.
And don't spend it on junk, right? That's a whole nother show.
Well, I tell you, it's funny that you say that. So you have to understand your value. If junk is what you value, spend it and spend it all on junk.
Right.
If you want to be an entrepreneur, invest in those buckets and then spend it, quote unquote, on a business. It's all about people's value systems. Entrepreneurs aren't greater than corporate people.
Right.
People who invest aren't greater than people who love fashion and invest in how they look. It's all about a person's goals and values in life. If being a successful entrepreneur is what you want to be, that bucket strategy will work perfectly. If you want to be the most fashionable person in town, buy clothes, shoes, etc. If you want to be the best looking person, regardless of your age, invest in that surgery or BBL. Right? At the end of the day, it's about the goals that we choose in life.
Right.
If entrepreneurship is the goal, I gave you the pathway. If fashion, looks, or being literary, maybe you invest all your money in books. If you want to be interesting, you invest in travel. Whatever your goal is, invest in that without shame. But when you're 65, don't look back and say, I should have been more responsible with my money. You were responsible. You chose fashion.
Right.
You chose travel. You chose, now you're 600 pounds. You chose food.
Mm-hmm.
But people like Giuseppe, Sam, and myself, we chose business success.
I like that.
Yep.
Very nice. Well said.
Yeah.
Beat that. What are you going to say, Sam? We let him go first.
Right. I should have went first. Well, to the audience, as an entrepreneur, I've been an entrepreneur all my life. I always quote Benjamin Franklin: "A man without a plan plans to fail." But once you get that plan, you have to implement it. It's a lot of people that have goals and dreams and ideas, and they never jump off the porch. And then what happens is when they do jump off the porch, they trip on the first step and they stop. An entrepreneur is a person that just didn't stop failing. That's all we do. We just start failing correctly. We learn how not to trip. We learn how not to stumble. We learn how to speak a little bit better. That's the only thing that separates us from other people that's not doing it. I always, like I said, I'm also into church, and I talk about Peter all the time. And people always talk about Peter that walked on the water, and Peter fell in the water. But we forget Jesus and Peter are the only two people that ever walked on the water. So be that person to get out the boat and walk on water. You're going to fail, and they're going to talk about you, and they're going to say, hey, he fell in the water. But, hey, I did walk on water. A lot of people ain't walking on water. All the other 12 disciples were sitting in the boat talking about Peter while he was walking on water. So if anything else I can tell you, you're going to fail. Fail as soon as you can, as often as you can, so you can learn. You fail, you analyze, you implement, you redo, you redo. That's every part of your life. That's all I can tell you. So keep failing, but fail in the right direction. Fail up.
That sounds great. Great advice. How can it's been a great show, and I want to thank you guys for your time. Love what you guys had to say. Love the show. What someone wants to get a hold of you, find out a little bit more, either contact you direct or learn more about the great massage products and potentially a promo. Where can they get that info?
Well, Sell or Fail is our podcast. You can always inbox us on Sell or Fail. That's on Facebook and Instagram. Personally, MassageOnTheGoMemphis.com is Sam, SAM, at MassageOnTheGoMemphis.com is my email. Everybody listening to this show, we're going to develop a hashtag with the show's name. You can implement it into our cart, and we're going to give you $70 off. Nice. $70 off, and that price still will include taxes and shipping. And we'll send everything to your house, and you can email me. What most people don't do, and our caveat of selling the massage guns, you have 10,000 hours of massage training that we will teach you how to use the massage guns. So after you buy the massage guns, you can email us. We'll set up a Zoom, and we'll teach you how to use them as well for yourself and your coworkers.
We'll put all that in the show notes. So it's hashtag Sell or Fail, correct? It's just
hashtag Sell or Fail. You can put that in the show notes, or we can create a hashtag. My team can create a hashtag for your company name as well. And if they want to put that in there, so we can put either one. So you can promote it with your company name or Cellophane, and either one they use, they get $70 off.
Mm-hmm.
That's right.
And like Sam said, you can find us for sure at the Cellophane podcast page on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. You can download the podcast at Kazukian.com, Spotify, Pandora, or wherever you find your favorite podcast provider. And one of the things we like to tell people, we talk business heavy on this, and we kind of touched on the sale piece. But what's really critical is if you ain't selling,
you failing. Let's get this money.
Wow. I need some help promoting my book. I think I'm going to have to do the show because I definitely don't have the I need a little bit more energy, but I like that. I need a partner in crime. So maybe that's what I'm going to work on later half of this year. But guys, it was a pleasure. This was a lot of fun. I'm glad this all worked out. Definitely look forward to definitely speaking again. We're going to put everything in the show notes. We covered a lot. Bios. We're going to put the promo, the hashtag, how they can get a hold of you. And then anything else we forgot to mention or you think of something else, you shoot me over an email. Make sure to add that to the show notes. So Sam, Brett, thank you very much. I really appreciate it. And we'll definitely talk soon.
Thank you, man. We're going to have you on our show. We're doing a mean campaign right now, Instagram and Facebook and TikTok, getting our followers up some more. But we have a 12 guest layout, and we're going to have you on our show, and you can teach us about how you sell. So we talk about the sales cycle, things of that nature. We'll have you back on.
That's great. I'm actually doing a little homework. I have a sales guru. I'm not going to say his name because that's to be maybe I'll tell you after the show.
Okay.
On the show in a few weeks, but he's teaching me a little bit more to help me with my craft. So looking forward to it. I appreciate it. And hang on here. We'll end the show and we'll chat for a few minutes.